Welcome to the Ableton and Music Habits Podcast, Episode 40.
Welcome to the Ableton and Music Habits Podcast, actionable music production tips to take your music to the next level. And now, your host, Jason Timothy.
Hey guys, Jason Timothy here, musicsoftwaretraining.com. This is where I take excerpts from my best-selling book, The Mental Game of Electronic Music Production, and share some insights with you. And today the topic is going to be about committing to your music. So I like to start these off with a review from Amazon. And this review comes from Eden Levy, and he writes, "This book changed my life. Highly recommended. Also for advanced producers. I produced music for 10 years now and never finished so many songs in such a short time. Never thought of making music as a habit before. Now I produce music every day and getting signed to big labels." So thanks so much for that review. If you've left a review on Amazon after reading the book or on Audible, you might be the next to get your review read. So let's get into this. With most of us, we don't really have a problem with creating an idea of a goal, something that we want to accomplish, something we want to get better at. Oftentimes we do this at the beginning of a new year or after we have a birthday or something like that, where we really want to make some changes or commit to things. But the problem is most of us don't stick to this more than a few days or a few weeks before we fall off and get back into our old habits. And this is very much the same as with creating music, right? So I'm curious if you've ever made a habit that lasted. Have you ever stuck with a habit daily for 30 days? If you commit to something for 30 days, you're going to get so much of a better result. And obviously the longer you go, some say 45 days is really where you really hit your stride. But the thing is here, if you're creating a new habit, you're also breaking an old habit. So in this case, you're breaking the habit of not making music and replacing it with a habit of making music, right? So you're breaking one habit and you've got a new habit coming in. So it's kind of a double whammy because you've got a habit of not doing something. So that's actually much, much stronger than your habit of doing something new, right? And it takes a while for that to balance and to feel right. The first few days of doing something, you just have kind of this momentum of just a lot of fresh energy. But once that fresh energy is gone, the habit itself is not instilled. And if you're not careful, the habit of not doing something is going to be much stronger than the habit of doing it. So it's just something to keep in mind. So I did an experiment a couple years ago where I created a free group for people. I believe it was at the beginning of the year. And the commitment was producing music for 1 hour a day, every day for as long as possible. And with this, I think I had like almost 100 people like the post and like the idea. Of those people, 50 people kind of signed up to commit to doing this. The experiment, once again, was to post your progress every day in the group. So the goal is to spend an hour a day, every day, or as many days as possible, and build that habit in a group setting so that people can also hold each other accountable and kind of root each other on, right? So that's what the group was created for. And it was also for me to commit to my own daily practice as well. I figure, well, if I create this group, I really got to do something with it. So the results were pretty interesting, but also pretty predictable. So out of the 50 people, one person completed 29 days. One person completed 25 days of writing music every day and posting it. One person was able to go 15 days. 23 of the 50 people posted no music at all. 11 people posted one time, and 12 people posted somewhere between 2 to 7 times, so 2 to 7 days. So that just goes to show where commitment levels are, even if you start with a lot of enthusiasm, right? So this is something that you really need to pay attention to. Like, how committed are you to your music? You really need to ask yourself that question. And you need to also ask yourself if you're willing to go further than you thought that you could. Are you willing to commit more to this than you have in the past, right? And are you willing to let go of your past failures so that you can get on a new path and not let the past control your future? What I found myself with producing for so many days in a row is that it just got easier and more natural to sit down and write music. The fear went away of making mistakes. It's not because I always had great days of producing. I had a lot of crap days. But after pushing through a few of those crap days, I always know that I'm going to get a result soon enough. So even if that day it doesn't work out, usually after a 3-day lull, some sort of inspiration comes that drives me further and takes the music I'm working on further. The solutions come. When you're working on something every day, your brain unconsciously is in the background solving a lot of problems for you as well. So it always seems to work out over several days, even if you have some crap days. So that's something that I've really found to be incredibly insightful and really important to producing or anything that I pursue that I don't start off very good at. And there's nothing that you're going to start that you've never done that you're automatically going to be great at. So this is just something that you need to allow to happen. First, you need to allow it not to feel totally right when you start. It's actually going to feel wrong to do it because it's not in your normal habit process. And the brain likes to do processes that it's done the day before because it's always trying to reserve energy for you. This is kind of an instinct to reserve energy for survival, in the past. So it's kind of our reptilian brain, as some people like to call it, that is trying to keep you safe by reserving as much energy. So it gets into these patterns, and by repeating the patterns, it doesn't take as much energy. When you try to do something new, that takes a certain amount more energy. And you've only got so much mental energy through the day. So let's say you might have 2 to 3 real solid mental energy hours. And then after that, you've got to do kind of menial, repetitive sort of tasks. So creative work is difficult, especially in the beginning, because it's not a habit. But once it becomes a habit, then it starts going into a habitual section of your brain. So your brain is better able to solve problems, it doesn't resist it, and it just incorporates everything into the brain. So every time you sit down, it's going to more and more give you what you need creatively. So back to this experiment of working on music every day. Many people know that, I went years where maybe I'd finish 3 to 5 songs a year. That's like kind of where I was at. And when I did this experiment, in the 36 days of daily practice, I actually finished 7 songs. So 7 songs in about a month and a week. That was really a powerful thing for me to discover. And also, the songs that I wrote were actually of higher quality than the songs that I had previously wrote, for the most part. So that's another reason why you should really think about your commitment level on a daily basis, as opposed to just blocking out 6 hours or a full day once a month or something like that. Typically, you're not going to get quite as much done with that kind of thing. You can have bursts of creative energy for sure, because you kind of got that drive, but you hit burnout really quick, which is usually why you bang it out for a day or two, and then you're wiped out. Having the daily practice just tunes your brain much more efficiently. So one thing that I would recommend to you guys to help you with creating a daily habit is to broadcast publicly that you're going to do this, because it's much easier to be held accountable by your peers than it is to hold yourself accountable. If you don't broadcast it, it really means that you don't really believe that you're going to actually do the thing that you have planned on doing. If you 100% believed you were going to do it, then you wouldn't be worried about sharing it with others. But usually the reason that we don't share is because we're in fear that we're going to fail. I think it's much better to share and fail than it is to not share, because of the fact that even if you fail, you'll probably have done more and taken more steps forward than you would if you hadn't gone public with it. So a couple things that I would start with here in building your practice is start with just one habit at a time. All right. So what I mean by this is don't try to learn everything about music all at the same time. Practice one aspect of your music while you're doing this daily practice. And my suggestion to you is just make the focus on finishing songs. Just know just enough to finish songs and build that first, and then put the pieces together and get better at the other pieces. Because by just working on finishing songs, you figure out the essentials that you need to know, and it kind of cuts all the crap out. So that would be my recommendation. You could choose what you want, but finishing songs at the end of the day is the goal for most people. Then what I would do is, if you haven't started sitting down, for an hour a day, then start with 15 minutes a day. Start with something that is so small that it would be ridiculous for you not to do it, and build that habit first before you try to go to a higher time. Because if you're really trying to commit to an hour a day, that's a pretty difficult goal to set from scratch. So maybe build yourself up from 15 minutes a day. When that feels really comfortable and no problem, go to a half hour a day, and then you can build up from there. If you do miss a day, don't think that you've failed. Just get back on and continue the habit, okay? That shit just happens. It's going to happen no matter what at some point. So don't worry so much about that. Just every day you have a new opportunity to get back on and do the work. Try not to go more than a day or two missing the practice, just because you're going to start, one, forgetting what you've learned really quickly, and two, you're starting to build the neural pathways to not doing the thing instead of doing it. Remember, we're trying to get rid of the not doing habit and replacing it with the doing habit. So there's a battle between the two. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. Another thing I would say is stop preparing to do work. I mean, maybe before you start your practice altogether, you get your studio organized, you get your software set up so all the audio and everything's working properly. That's probably a good idea. But after you've done that, just get to work. There's no more preparation you need to do. There's no studying that you need to do before you sit down and just start making music. Don't go into tutorials, don't do any of that. Just sit down and write. Don't distract yourself with the other stuff, because the other stuff isn't making music. And you don't want to fool yourself into that, because once again, that becomes another habit. Building a new habit of preparing to make music instead of making music, all right? It's a real easy trap to fall in, because it makes you feel like you're doing something when you're actually doing nothing, all right? So try to keep that in mind as well. Another thing that I find really helpful is to follow another habit that you already do every day with this habit, so that they connect, right? Like maybe you do your music habit after you brush your teeth in the morning or something, right? So every time you brush your teeth, it's a trigger towards this new habit. So the old habit will connect with the new habit and help to strengthen the new habit, all right? So that's something that I find is really helpful as well. And then the last thing is post your progress. You've posted publicly that you're going to work on music every day for as long as you can. Post what you're up to, post your progress. Let people know where you're at. Allow people to support you. You don't need to do this completely publicly, because obviously if you're making music, you want to present your best self. But maybe join a small group of people that are like-minded that you can trust, or find a Facebook group of producers that you can share stuff with, right? That aren't going to judge you. They're just going to root you on as you're progressing. That's going to be another great way to kind of keep going, because once again, these people will hold you accountable and root for you even when you're having a crap day with producing. And once again, that will happen. But if you keep producing through it, you will get through it and you'll get to the other side. And the cool thing about that is oftentimes you get into a certain flow after you've had kind of a meltdown of producing. Like flow usually follows a struggle, is what I've found, and a lot of people have found that. So oftentimes going through a struggle, you make new discoveries. So just keep pushing through those rough days. And I really hope that this helps you. And that's it for today. So have a fantastic one, and I'll speak to you guys real soon. Take care. Hey guys, thanks again for listening to the podcast. Make sure to subscribe and share this with your friends, any producers that you know out there that could use this sort of information. Obviously, that helps me greatly. It helps me build this channel. Also, don't forget that you can read my best-selling book, The Mental Game of Electronic Music Production, for free by going to musicsoftwaretraining.com/The Mental Game. You'll also get my song recovery kit and my 101 Ableton tips video totally free. If you'd like to connect with me more directly to see how I might be able to help you personally, you can schedule a free 15-minute session with me by going to musicsoftwaretraining.com/application and answering a few quick questions. Happy music making, and I'll speak to you real soon.